So let's talk about Oregon's safety room, where the perfect guy, or at least how it appears, is available. Purdue safety Dillon Thieneman, who has spent the last 2 years in West Lafayette and is transferring in the midst of a coaching change. Barry Odom is there coming up from UNLV, and that replaces Ryan Walters, who came over from Illinois as defensive coordinator, and Thieneman has done nothing but produce over the last couple of seasons. So this comes in the wake, by the way, or this discussion, I should say, comes in the wake of Tyler Turner hitting the transfer portal. That's a guy who was on Oregon's 2 deep this year. Remember, when Thien Johnson appeared, no one ever confirmed, but certainly how it looked, appeared to be suspended for something, Tyler Turner played a half of football against, it was either Idaho or Boise State, one of those 2 games. He played an entire half. So this is a guy who was on the 2 deep, and going in next year, I absolutely could have seen him being a starting player. When the subs would get in at the end of blowout games this season, Tyler Turner was usually one of those guys that was on the field. That makes you think, oh, okay, so if Kobe Savage had to come out for a play because his helmet was off, Tyler Turner is probably the guy that goes in and plays for him. The same thing with Thien Johnson. And I thought Turner did some solid things this year. He wasn't anything special when he was on the field per se, but former 4-star recruit in the class of 2023, he's in the transfer portal. Of the 3 guys, Jackson Jones and Shaq McCoy, the other ones, this is probably the guy who is most likely to contribute, who has transferred out of the program so far, which is why Dillon Thieneman makes even more sense. So this is a position group where you're losing Thien Johnson, you're losing Kobe Savage after this year. You're going to need a safety, and you can have a young guy step up and be a starter. I don't know that at a position like that, you want to go with 2. And Thieneman, it was the Big Ten Defensive Freshman of the Year. I apologize if I'm not saying his name correctly. That's just the best that I could find. But he was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year in 2023. 3rd team All-American as a freshman. So when you consider the position group, and yes, Oregon has recruited this position incredibly well. There's so much communication that goes on the back end of a defense. It's not as simple. I think nothing is simple, just to be clear. Nothing is simple about playing college football, no matter the spot. But you need a lot more experience. You need a lot more knowledge and understanding of coverages and concepts and whatnot to play safety than you do to play defensive line. In Dan Lanning's 3 years, someone can fact check me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not. A true freshman has never started at safety, but true freshmen have started or even played heavily, played significant snaps. That hasn't happened. It has been all experienced guys. And sure, one of the young guys could certainly be among the starting safeties next year. A guy like Peyton Woodyard or Aaron Flowers, just to name a couple. Of course, you have a highly touted defensive back class coming in, but you had 3 true freshmen playing along the defensive line last year. We have seen true freshmen play along the offensive line in 2 out of Lanning's 3 seasons. We've seen him play at corner even. Jalil Florence played as a corner as a true freshman in 2022, but the safeties have always been more experienced guys. So that's something that I can really get behind if you go get Thieneman. Oregon has either already had him for a visit or is going to have him for a visit, but this is not just me saying, hey, this guy would be a great fit. This is me saying Oregon's going after him, and this would be a phenomenal addition. Now, everydayers know that my top name coming out of Purdue for the transfer portal has been Max Clare, the tight end. You put him with Kenyon Sadiq, and that is a dynamic playmaking duo at the tight end position next year. And the Ducks certainly need tight ends because Roger Saliapaga, who saw meaningful snaps and I thought did really well against Purdue earlier this season, he had a season-ending surgery, and you don't know how long exactly that's going to take for him to fully recover, get back to full strength. Think of Jalil Florence. Thought Jalil Florence might be ready to start the season. He could be ready to go. We'll see if he plays in the Rose Bowl against the winner. I don't know why that was so essy. The Rose Bowl against the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee, but he hasn't played yet this season. Got hurt during the end of last year. So Thieneman's first name's also Dillon. Guy's named Dillon. We know they're pretty cool. Tends to work out. So that'd make a lot of sense. Another transfer name to keep an eye on. Oregon's going to have a lot of turnover at the wide receiver position. We don't know what Evan Stewart's going to do, J. Michael Sturdivant is in the transfer portal. I've talked about him, I think, each of the last 2 years on the show, or after the 22 season, I would have talked about him on the show, and now he's coming up again. I'm bullish on this guy. If he's your number 2 wideout, you've got an elite receiving core. He's a Trayshawn Holden, Chase Cota type to me. If he's your number 2, you have a good receiving core, a really good receiving core. If he's your number 3, you have an elite receiving core. And Oregon has an elite one. And Trayshawn Holden, number 3 guy to Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart most of the time. Though, depends on the day, as we have seen throughout the course of this year. I think that wide receiver room has got a crazy amount of talent. Not a lot of it is incredibly proven. A veteran, J. Michael Sturdivant, is going to be a 5th-year player. He redshirted his first year at Cal, played in his second, went to UCLA. He's been wildly underutilized the last couple of seasons with the Bruins because last year they had Ethan Garbers at quarterback for the most part in a revolving door and couldn't throw the ball. And this year they had Ethan Garbers and a now fired offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy. So they haven't been able to unlock his full potential. He could be a number 2, quite frankly. I think he could be a low-end number 1 receiver. For all I know, he could be a pretty high-end number 1 receiver. We haven't seen his full potential. He was a blue-chip guy coming out of high school, and he flashes that potential. He's got the whole package. He is 6'3". I think he's just a little over 200 pounds. He can be an outside guy, inside guy, yards after the catch, contested catch, really strong, fast, great hands, whole package there. Bringing in a veteran to complement the up-and-comers in the wide receiver room, I think could be a really, really good thing for the Ducks. So, speaking of Dillon, or people named Dillon, like Dillon Thieneman, the Purdue safety, I sent out an idea of Dillon Gabriel needs to have a name, a nickname, because of how he has done in the big games so far. Knock on wood that he brings it again, which I think he will, on January 1st, no matter who Oregon is playing. So, by the way, Ducks versus them is out, and it's awesome, as always. The best ones that I heard, number 2, coming in at number 2, I got a lot of suggestions here. A lot of suggestions. Honorable mention, Big Game Gabe. Liked that one. That's the honorable mention. But coming in at number 2 is Iceman. I like that. He's a cool character. I've interviewed him before. He's very even-keeled, steady, level-headed. Looks like a veteran, acts like a veteran, is a veteran. The best one that plays off of Iceman, though, I apologize I didn't jot down who sent it to me. Let me know if you did, and I can give you a shout-out on tomorrow's show. Hawaiian Ice. I'm about it. That was my favorite. If you got a better nickname for the guy who's just showing up in the big games time and time again, you let me know. But Hawaiian Ice, yeah, I dig it. I dig it big time. I wanted to drop just a quick note on this. So there was this report going around Twitter about the NCAA's estimates of how much funding an NIL collective has. And Oregon wasn't in the top 10, which is kind of funny. Does not paint the whole picture, I don't believe, just to be clear. We will never know because the NIL collectives are private entities separate from the university. They're not required to release information about how much they have. I'm sure you could find this, that, and the other thing. But I think the number that was flying around the internet yesterday was Oregon is around $10, $11 million. I think they've got more than that available. It does, however, underscore a key point that never comes into the NIL discussions, especially when you deal with people who don't actually know anything about Oregon except Nike and Phil Knight. The assumption that Oregon has unlimited NIL is patently false. Know that for a fact. The second thing that comes into play is, well, they can just buy all their kids. They can just outbid everybody. Or, well, Oregon only got this guy because they outbid this team, that team, and the other team. Absolutely not true. Does that graphic with the NCAA estimates tell the whole story? No, it doesn't. It does tell something, that Oregon is a tier 1 team when it comes to NIL. To say that they have the pockets to just go and wildly outbid anybody in the country at any time is factually inaccurate. Factually inaccurate. So I wanted to just come on here and say that, because it continues to bug me when people just imply, well, Oregon's only doing this. Like what? Texas's NIL collective is dry? You don't think Matthew McConaughey's ever given a dime to that collective? How much did Ohio State's roster cost reportedly? $20 million? You think they're short in NIL funds in Columbus? That's what you think. Okay, yeah. You continue on with that take though and say that's the only reason. I'm not here saying that Oregon isn't using NIL. Of course they are. As I said, tier 1 university in that department. But to pretend like it is all that, and I see this pop up literally every day. I hear it on other podcasts. I get it from college football fans. I get it from friends all over the place. Not true in any way, shape, or form.